Greetings. This is the Shelton Bumgarner Show, your weekly show that pretty much is whatever I find is interesting. And this week, it is about Periscope, and specifically women's use of Periscope. Now, I was originally a blabber, and but I discovered Periscope first, and I was like, I don't see how to use this. This is gonna do anything. And then I discovered Blab through Periscope, and then next thing I know, I've used Blab for 3 months, and I'm like, well, maybe I should take a little break. So I took a little break, and what should I do but start to use? I started to use Periscope obsessively, and I noticed amongst the people that were in the Periscope sphere was Gables. Okay, at this point, I want Sydney and Hannah, my co-hosts, to introduce themselves briefly. And so, ladies first. Hannah, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah, and I am primarily a Periscoper, but I am also on Blab. And I found it. I just sort of stumbled on it like people do. I was late to the Periscope game, and then it turns out everybody is really nice, or at least I can control who I'm around, and it's been pretty good. It's been nice. And I live in Austin, Texas, and I have 3 dogs, and I like pizza.
Sydney, tell us about yourself.
Good evening. I am Shelton's biggest fan. I watch him on Periscope morning, day, night, late night, later night, and midnight. I watch him eat darkly pink milk. And while doing that, we interact, and we often find the most fascinating things on Periscope. Now, because I can't speak to him, it gives him total control over the situation, which at times is good and other times quite scary. I am from Northern Canada, where I study in university, and that is directly leading to my receding hairline. And I am both honored and amused to be here amongst you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Okay, great. And this is the point where I would like to make some remarks. First of all, Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends. And I think it's the 4th night of Hanukkah, right? And also, I would be remiss not to note that Mr. Trump continues to cause trouble here in America, and that is an absurd situation, which would probably warrant a show unto itself at some point in the future. Anyway, Jables, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you located, and so forth and so on.
Hi guys, I'm Jables. I am from Cincinnati, Ohio, and love Ohio, even though it's getting really cold. I am a full-time mother. I homeschool my 2 beautiful daughters. I'm married to a wonderful man. But I'm also a full-time broadcaster and blogger, and really pursuing those forums and just having a lot of fun with that. I also do some part-time creative consultant work on the side. And I'm a dub smasher. How can I not say that? I love dub smash.
What is dub smashing?
Oh my goodness. It's an app on your phone, and it's where you do like 10-second of lip sync, because I cannot sing. So this is like my saving grace. So I can be on dub smash and lip sync to these songs and act like I'm a movie star, even though I'm not. So I run a crew of dubs. I have like a dub smash crew of like almost 50 people on Twitter, and we just have a really good time with that, and it's just a lot of fun. It is fun.
Is it live? Is it a live streaming?
No. Nope.
You record them?
Yeah, you record them on your phone, and then you save them, and then you can filter them. We've made whole like movies. I've done like a mini Twilight and a mini Hunger Games, and there's just a lot you can do with it. It's just super fun. So I'm addicted.
Good to know.
Okay, so Jables, tell us how you discovered Periscope, and what did you think of it once you did?
Well, my sister is on Periscope. She found it first, and she was building her platform and talked a lot about branding and business on there. That really isn't my forte, and so I wasn't really so much of a fan of it at first, and then decided one day in July that I was going to jump on. And my sister invited her friends in my scope. I had like 5 or 6 people. And this guy jumped in named Editor Man Caves. And he had a bigger following on Periscope, had been Periscoping all throughout the summer. And he gave me the sweet name Jables. My name is actually Jillian. And the name stuck. And every time I'd go into a broadcast, people were like, it's Jables. And so I just went with it. And the community was just so sweet and so nice that I just fell in love with it. And the more I broadcasted, the more that I just got obsessed and addicted and found a family and a support group there. And I started working for a channel called At the Editor TV. And that has opened up a lot of doors. And we're just having a good time producing shows and putting out really fun content.
So how many followers do you have on Periscope now?
I have almost 1,100. Right now.
Wow, not bad. That's pretty good.
Not bad.
Okay, so I have these like the question I have, which is the most obvious question, is why is it that it seems the women get so much more traction than men when it comes to Periscope? It seems as though a woman can just be a woman, just be attractive, and just sit there and stare at the screen, and she can get 70 people to look at her. Why do you think that is? And is there any hope for just a middle-aged, hairy guy like me? That
of course there's hope. I just think that it has a lot well, I don't know the ratio of like men and women Periscopers, number one. But if I had to say guess, I would say it is because, number one, women flock together. And I think that there are a lot more subjects maybe that the females could hit on. And we are just more social and we flock, So a woman jumps on. The men are going to come in there because they're going to want to see a pretty girl. Not all men. I'm not trying to make it seem like they're creepers, but I just think there's more subjects for them to talk about. They might be more comfortable in their skin, and the female can attract both male and female audiences, where sometimes the male subjects might not attract the females.
So you said something that you previously that you felt as though women perhaps could generate more content than men. Is that true? Well, tell me, why do you think that, and how can someone like such as myself generate content given that I'm not nearly as fun to look at as you?
Well, I really don't think it has much to, well, in my head, I'd like to think that it doesn't have so much to do with appearance. I follow so many different people, so many diverse people I'm attracted to, people I'm not attracted to. I think that I just don't, I'm trying to be careful with what I say because I really don't want to put down male Periscopers. I follow so many guys, but it is true that I think I do have a little bit more of a male following than the female following. And that's actually something that I'm really working on, my own content, to make sure that I am talking about more female subjects because that's more of my audience. I don't necessarily think that females have more content. I just think that right now there might be more subjects that draw in an audience that the females are bringing in, as opposed to males.
Oh, at this point, I will ask Hannah to ask a question.
Oh, that does make plenty of sense in the females bringing more subjects to a new media, a new kind of platform, and a new way for people to express themselves. What do you think's the counterpoint of that? Because we do have such a nice flooding and flock of women together, and women on Periscope is a pretty strong thing. What have? I don't want to ask you what the worst thing you've had to experience on there was, but what would you say are the downsides to being a female broadcaster online?
I think definitely the whole trolling thing is probably the thing that's talked about the most. And just the dangers of having people watch you. It's very intimate. I mean, you don't know. These people are holding their phones or watching on their cameras in their bedrooms, and they feel like they know you, and they do. It's the most raw and real, non-filtered form of social media, and it does get very intimate in that kind of a setting. And I think there's a danger of not knowing who's watching you, how often they're watching you, kind of a thing. So that's always a fear. It's always a risk. And then the trolls, God bless them, are little eggs on on Periscope. There is some harassment. I've had a lot of people come on and, ask me a lot of sexual questions. I haven't really had anyone mean to me, but I know Periscopers do. I know some women are called fat and uppity, and they're told to shut up and they shouldn't be on, and I think that that's terrible. But I think that that's kind of what the worst thing people are dealing with. Do you think that, like, what can women do to manage the trolls? Is there anything that women can do to make themselves safer than they might otherwise feel? I definitely always encourage everyone to not enable their location. I just think that that's smart. I know some people want to do that so they can find other Periscopers in their area, but I announce sometimes where I live, but for the most part, I kind of keep it under wraps where I'm located. I just think that that's smart. And also making sure that you're watching who's following you. If I get someone who's following me, I kind of look to see who they're following. And if they're following a bunch of sex, Periscopers, I unfollow them and block them just because I know that they're not really interested in my content. They're not really interested in me. They're interested in just watching or, being a troll. So just watching and some people immediately block the trolls when they come in their scope. Sometimes I give them a little grace, but just blocking and call them out, people handle it different ways. So I guess it's just your style, your personality.
Sydney, do you have any? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Hannah.
What do you say about women that are on Periscope, not asking for it, but that are trying to attract or getting out of it some sort of positive because of what they're showing? Because they are, opening bobs.
Mm-hmm. So what was the question? I'm sorry.
How do you feel about it? I guess how do you feel about that in you wanting to make sort of a safe space, which I definitely respect. How do you feel about women that are not behaving in the same way?
Well, I never want to be necessarily a judgmental person to those girls. I think that on one aspect, I wish that they didn't do that just because I wish that they respected themselves, but not going in that direction. Sometimes, since there are women who are doing that, they're going to attract more of the guys or women who are on Periscope for that content and will leave the women alone who are on there to actually promote something or to, who aren't interested in that. I realized that early on when I first jumped on before people not people, but I don't have a huge following, but people kind of understood where my boundaries were. I don't get it so much anymore because I think that they know I'm not going to give into that.
All right. Sydney, do you have any questions?
I do. I'm actually wondering, with the huge following that you have, where is this ultimately leading? Is it possible to turn this into an actual job?
I think so. I think that just like YouTube and, we talked about people getting on and they get to advertise products and they have sponsorship. Periscope is like the new interactive TV. And I love that phrase because that to me, that just puts goosebumps on me. It's new. You can't interact with something that you watch. And I feel like companies and organizations are going to want to be a part of this and have us advertise their products, and we can definitely monetize it. I think it's definitely moving in that direction for sure.
And how are you going to feel that once you're doing this, is it going to seem like you're selling out and changing your brand when you're fundamentally promoting products as you speak?
I don't think so. I think everyone in the community that I have experienced are so kind. They're so supportive, and I just think that people are going to go with the flow of how it's going. And I think that they're going to be supportive. And it's nice to know that they can have that opportunity too, if they want that and they choose to do that. So I think that is going to be cool. I think everyone's going to be excited when more monetizing of Periscope channels and stuff happens.
And do you think that when it becomes monetized, there's going to be more higher production value in terms of the content that people will be tuning in to see?
Sure. Absolutely. I think that's just, that would just happen naturally for sure.
Right.
So what do you think is your personal future on Periscope? Do you think that, are you going to be a star, as they say? Are you going to Are you? What do you think is going to happen, and if you are going to be a star, how is it going to happen?
Well, it's so weird to like say that now because I don't want, you don't want to sound like vain or like conceited, but I'm just going to be really honest. My whole platform, you could say, is encouraging others to, yes, jazz hands, is to, embrace their unique gifts and embrace their quote unquote, their weird. And I grew up doing theater and I love to be in front of a camera and I love to perform. And so for me, Periscope is the perfect avenue for me. I am obsessed with it. I love it. And if God so chooses to use me in this way and launch me out there, I am so ready. But for now, I'm just having fun with the community and having fun producing shows and just putting myself out there. That's all you can really do, And so that's kind of just what I'm doing. I'm just, putting myself out there.
Do you feel like there's a responsibility in female broadcasters to do that, to put themselves out there and spread this? Because you have a very great positive message of, go for it. And do you feel like there is a responsibility as a female broadcaster to support other women broadcasters, or do you see actively engaging women over men without the negative connotations there?
Right. I do think it's very important to, as a woman Periscoper, to support other women Periscopers. I've kind of been getting involved more with the Perry Girls tribe and watching some of their content, and I love what they do. I love that it's just a community of just women, and they get support, and men are in their shows for sure, but it's geared towards women, and I do think that's important. For me myself, I'm very male and female. What's the word? That's my audience. Yeah. Male and female. I do think I have a little bit of a larger male audience, and I think I already said this, but I'm kind of trying to move towards trying to get more females in my broadcasts. But I love both, and I think both men and female Periscopers are awesome. They give so much, no matter their sex. So much good stuff.
I had a question about the title here, that maybe Shelton can go into. What exactly is an open bob? Because it sounds like something that's refreshing and delicious. Like, hey, Shelton, let's just go and crack open a couple bobs.
So, Jables?
You want me to explain?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were explaining. Okay, so yeah, there was a phenomenon on Periscope where I guess people overseas were trying to tell women to show their boobs, and the translation or something kept coming out open bob. And the way that I heard, I was told to open bobs in my scopes before I was ever associated with the Editor TV channel. And a lot of the guys that I don't understand why they think that coming in a women's broadcast and saying open bobs is going to get them anywhere, but they do it a lot. But I love this subject because the channel that I work for, the Editor TV, has a show called It's Bob Mob Time. It's actually on right now, and Joe Sohetti is the leader of the Bob Mob, and what he does is he turned harassment into hilarity. And it's to support female broadcasters. So what we do is there's like 200 of us, and we all go into his scope. And then he randomly finds a man, we only do men, a random broadcast. And then we all jump into that broadcast, and we give hearts, and we just tell the person to open bobs. And it is I've cried laughing watching this. The guys they're like, I'm famous. Like they'll go from 12 viewers to like 200, and they freak out, and we get them to open their bobs and show their chest, and we take screenshots and we feature them, and then they come and join the mob. And so we just continue to grow, and it's really made females who know about it feel really safe, because like I was saying, if a guy comes in and says open bobs to me, I am not turned off in the slightest. It's almost funny, and I'm going to write their handle down so we can go Bob Mob them later. So it's just so great. Like men are looking out for women on Periscope, and I feel so protected. A lot of us do, having things like that out there. So it's crazy, but the guys do it. But now there's a turnaround.
You can't actually type. Boobs is a word that if you type it into Periscope, it'll ping and say, are you sure you want to send this to the person? And So I think people were, I can't send boobs. Maybe I'll just bobs.
Bobs. Yeah, it's becoming a universal word for sure.
And I would agree that that's funny. How do you deal with broadcasts when someone comes in and does post a comment that makes you pause, or that's just really out there?
So I've handled it different ways. Sometimes it depends on the scope that I'm doing. If I am doing a more serious scope and someone's in there, if I get a comment, I might ignore it at first. But if the guy or girl continues, I will block them. But sometimes I've just called them out and I just said, so-and-so, I know you're not going to come in my scope and start talking to me like this. It's not going to get you anywhere. I'm not the broadcaster for you. Please leave or I'm going to block you. And usually they do leave. So, I think it's just important for them to know, like, you're not going to engage with them like that. So, peace out.
So, is there much community on Periscope? I don't think there's as much community on Periscope as there is on Blab. And if there is community on Periscope, explain it to me. Where does it exist, and how does it work?
Well, what I have experienced on Periscope is actually just makes me smile so much. Like, you kind of do join these. They're just clicks because I really hate that. But you do join these families, these groups, and for me, what happened is I started following more broadcasters who were following each other, getting involved with the Editor TV. So then what happened is we moved off of Periscope. So during the day when we're not Periscoping, I cannot even tell you how many threads I'm involved in on Twitter with a bunch of different Periscopers. And I'm not even exaggerating. The thread goes all day. I mean, we have like the Dub Smash crew. This is made up of Periscopers. We have like 50 people in there. We have As the Scopes Turn. We have threads for just specifically the Editor TV family, people who just support us. And to me, I talk more with these people than I do my normal girlfriends who I'm close to here, or that I've known for 10 years. I spend more time with Periscopers now off Periscope than most, even family sometimes. And so I think it's important when you find those people that you connect with on Periscope that you go find what they're doing off Periscope, like on Twitter. A lot of people do stuff on Twitter, like the Bopo tribe is always putting out stuff on Twitter, and that's not necessarily on Periscope. So you just got to find your community, find where you fit in and where you want to be, and then go see what they're doing elsewhere and just jump in and be a part of it. And I've met Periscopers, and it's just amazing. Sorry, Hannah.
Oh, no, you're okay. You said Twitter is a lot of where the community extends to, because it gives you sort of that chat option. Do you find yourself in communities on Facebook as well? Because we had talked earlier off show about the Facebook live streaming. And so, yes, first question. Do you also find that on Facebook?
Not so much. I used to be very heavy on Facebook. I was a part of like the Periscope Hustler group, and I'm part of the Bopo tribe on there and the Perry Girls. But I had do so much on Twitter. I kind of left Facebook behind. And if there is a community on Facebook, I'm just not necessarily active in it. I just have found that Twitter is really easy. People are more comfortable having a bunch of stuff in their newsfeed as opposed to Facebook. If you flood their newsfeed, they're going to unfollow you, because they don't want that in their newsfeed. But Twitter, people don't really scroll through the newsfeed necessarily. So I think that that's easier to communicate over there. And the thread option, it's just, we have so much fun on Twitter. It's I love our community. I think that there's room for everyone, and I always say, like, if you don't have a place to be on Periscope, come join our family, because we are so diverse. There's someone for everybody. There's always something out there for anybody who's looking for anything, any subject. So,
well, one thing that one of the commenters wants to know is, will the steam wear off when the corporate players crash the party? Do you think because right now, although there are obviously some stars on. There are some stars on Periscope, but what happens when essentially the marketers swoop in and destroy everything and make it just another outlet for the usual stuff?
I think that there's going to be room for both, and I really haven't spent a lot of time necessarily reflecting on what I think about that. But I do think this is the new television. I really do, especially with Apple TV launching Periscope on their TVs. I just think this is where we're heading, and I think that there's going to be room for people who are monetizing and who do have sponsorship, and I think there's going to be people who just want to show their sunsets live, or they just have a baby and they want to stream that out and show, live their new little Christian faith. I just think it's going to be, there's room for everybody, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be a bad thing. I could be totally wrong. I hope I'm not wrong. But
So another question I have is, you've used both Blab and Periscope. Can you explain a little bit about how Blab and Periscope work together?
Well,
relative to your experience.
I've been on Blab, here and there. I did a show with Angel Hill one Monday night, which was so much fun. Really, with Blab, I think it's very great to be able to have 4 different opinions on the same subject, as opposed to watching one Periscoper, give their opinion, solely. Yeah. I love Blab for that. When I first jumped on Blab, Ricky Prime was the first person in my room, actually, and he introduced me to everyone. And I felt like the community on Blab was super close. I was very attracted to that and the kindness that I felt here. And I think it works together because you can, make friends on Periscope, and then all of you can come in the room and mingle together. And then the other viewers who watch you all individually can watch you together. I just think it really does have a good vibe. But definitely Blab is much better for these subjects because you get the diverse opinions, and it's not just one person, talking.
And where do you think platforms are going?
I'm sorry?
Where do you think these platforms are going?
I think that it's going to become I think like TV and stuff is going to be more dwindled away, and people are going to want to watch the live streaming.
Yeah.
I know I keep saying that, but that's just what I really do think. And I'm excited about it. I think it's awesome. This stuff is still so new, and the people who are on here, we're the first people to do it. And that's really exciting.
So Hannah, do you have any questions?
Well, a whole bunch. Yeah, a whole bunch. But mostly it's kind of geeky fan stuff because I really
ask away.
I realize how much I liked you, but you're really cool, and I'm really glad that we get to meet like this. So since we kind of extended it to Blab as well, do you think that there are different risks or different ways that women need to mitigate threats being on a Blab platform? Do you think the face-to-face interaction and the whole computer at your availability, do you think that is we have to approach that differently?
I think actually, I think there's almost a little more protection on Blab than Periscope, because on Periscope, you're by yourself. You're on your phone, you're in your house, wherever you're at. And if someone's harassing you or trolling you, it's just you really to handle that unless someone speaks up. But that's, a comment is not very threatening. But let's say someone came in here and said something to me. Shelton could totally have my back, and there's power in numbers, and so I feel like it might be a little more safe here, or protective, and but I think the risks are still the same. You're always going to wonder who's watching you, what they're taking from that, just the normal risks that you have when you put yourself out on any social media.
Yeah. So what? Just from what your personal experience. This is maybe a leading question, but it doesn't seem to be to you that Blab has a much stronger community established than Periscope. I mean, because Periscope, in my experience, is sort of a brutal media environment. I mean, if you're not entertaining or people don't like you, you lose them like crazy. Whereas Blab, you can grow connections and so forth and so on, and it's a much more gentle. In some ways it's worse, but it's a much more gentle media environment. What do you think about that?
I think that it's all dependent on the person and their experiences. I think that you make a good point that if they're not entertaining or they don't have good content, which I really hate that, people are not going to follow them. And that's actually one thing that I've even scoped about is I really don't like, I'm going to go ahead and call them the tools, who get on Periscope and tell other Periscopers how they need to use the app, like that you have to give something away. And I think it's fine if someone wants to get on and just show their cat, I think that it should just be used however you want it to be used. I don't have as much experience on Blab, so I don't necessarily know if I can really answer that, because all my experience really lies with Periscope, and that is where I have found my, my settling, if you will. But I will say that I have been super impressed. Like I said, the first time I ever got on Blab, it was me and my girlfriend, and all I did was say new to Blab. I had no friends on here, and Ricky Prime and Selassie and Sam and all these guys jumped in our Blab and introduced us to so many people and walked us through it, and that spoke volumes to me about what I was going to see on Blab, especially with Ricky being such a big blabber. That sounds funny. I was so appreciative that he took the time to just walk me through the steps, and then we became friends off Blab. So it's just been real. I love Blab. I think it's awesome, for real.
So, where do you think Periscope will be in 5 years? Like, I tell people that it will be it'll replace CNN and Twitter as the place that people go for breaking news. Do you agree?
Yes. I think we definitely saw that when the Paris shootings happened. People were, periscoping from the scene, and we didn't have to watch footage on the news. We could hear, real people talking about their experiences from, on site. And that was huge. I remember me and my girlfriend were actually talking about, we were watching some scopes from Paris, and I was like, this just hasn't been done before. If you didn't live there and you wanted to know, we did have to tune into the news, and now we don't have to, and we get to hear different perspectives and more. It just seems more honest. You know what I mean? Coming from people who are actually there. So I do think it is going to replace news, and I just agree with that for sure.
All right, Hannah or Sydney, do you have any questions?
So you said, and I had kind of a similar experience when I joined Blab, that you said people kind of took you in and showed you around, like helped you out with stuff. I had a similar experience. Do you think that happens to guys when they first start out on Blab now? Like, and because we kind of hit on an advantage, but also like Sheldon has talked about the hot chick effect, and like might get them in the room, but if you're not saying anything good, they're not going to stay. But do you think being a woman or being a good-looking woman on just at all is helpful in learning the ropes of a new platform so that you're good at it too?
It's definitely, it's one of those honesties that I really hate, that more attractive people are going to have doors open for them that may not open for people who are less attractive. I have to put this out there. I hate that with a passion. I hate even judging people by their appearance. It's one of those subjects that if we kept talking about it, I could get really passionate about it. But I honestly can't get away from the truth that if a girl who's attractive is going to jump in, people are going to stay with her and probably treat her differently and maybe a little better than if it was maybe a non-attractive male. I just think that's the sad world we live in, and I wish someday it wasn't going to be like that, but it is just one of those truths, and I hate it, honestly.
How do we as broadcasters contend that to keep these platforms as awesome and inclusive and kind as they've been? How do we fight against the because that's unfortunate. I don't want to lose out on voices, and that applies to men and women. Just because you're not good on camera could be a thing.
I think that it's important for the people who are like Ricky. I love Ricky, so I'm just going to use him as an example. I've seen him work as a broadcaster or I don't know. Do you guys call it a blabber? That sounds so funny.
Yes, blabber.
Okay. I've seen him stay with a blabber who was, in the world society's terms, maybe not the best looking person, quiet. I could hardly understand him. And he sat there with him and asked him questions. And the room was, full of people who were supportive. So I do think that it's up to the people who are a little bigger in these platforms to reach down and really take people under their wing and show support to them. That's how communities grow. And I think that that's important, to always be encouraging, always be supportive, and not get too high and mighty. Remember, we all started somewhere, and we all want support. We all want encouragement. And it's just important to remember.
Okay, Sydney, you got a question?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, so you think that Periscope will ultimately like just take over and we will it'll be a mainstream part of the society and we will there'll be Periscope stars like there are YouTube stars and stuff like that?
Oh, for sure. I absolutely do. I think it's just where YouTube is awesome because you can watch these people, you give tips and or entertainment value, whatever it is. Now you can connect with them. Like I love theater and I'm obsessed with this guy named Ramin Karimloo, and he plays on he plays in Les Mis. He was the Phantom on Netflix. You can watch it. He's on Periscope, and I got to go in and type to him, "I love you," like a 12-year-old, you know. And even though he had so many people in his broadcast, I felt like I connected with him. Or I'm a big Vanilla Ice fan, and he periscopes, and you know, I just think it. I think that there's just this whole new thing that's just taking over, and people are connecting in ways with other people that they've never been able to do before. I think it's just the most raw and real form. I actually just put this on my Facebook. I don't know if you guys know who the band 7 Seconds is, but they're an old punk rock band. And Kevin Seconds and I met on Periscope, and I jumped into Scope tonight. He was like, Jables. And I was like, oh my gosh, how could this ever happen if not for Periscope? How can I? And actually, he wants to come to Blab, which is so funny.
Way, yay!
Yeah, he's like, will you do my first Blab with me? And, you know, like, I'm nervous. I was like, absolutely, I'll be in the room with you. But how would I ever meet a celebrity like Kevin Seconds if not for something like Periscope, where I can go in the chat, connect with him, and say, hello, my name is Jables. It's so different than anything we've ever had. It's amazing.
So one thing you mentioned that you said that women produce better content than men on Periscope. Can you, as a middle-aged hairy man, can you give me some advice as to how I can overcome the hot chick effect, and I can maybe get closer to 1,000 followers such as yourself?
Well, I just want to correct myself. I'm sorry if I said that because it sounds so terrible. I don't necessarily believe that women produce better content than men. I think that there might be more subjects for women to hit on. So let me just clarify that.
Okay, that's fine.
But I do think I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with being middle-aged or what you look like. I think it's what you're hilarious and you're cute. And I think you put yourself out there. You let your viewers connect with you. I always tell people that I think that one of the reasons why people may be more attracted to me, not physically, but my personality, is because I really do want to engage with you. So if you jump in my scope and I have never seen your name before, I'm going to call you out. And I'm going to look at your profile if I can, you know, if there's not that many people in there, because the comments can go by quickly. But I want to make friends. And, you know, and I don't think, actually, honestly, Shelton, a lot of the guys that I follow are more middle-aged guys. And I just love connecting with anybody. I think that there's definitely room for everybody and for every platform. Whatever you have to say, I encourage you just to hit start broadcast and put yourself out there and make friends.
Now, one issue is, I did the Myers-Briggs test on here on Blab one time, and we discovered that virtually everybody on Blab had the same Myers-Briggs personality test.
Oh gosh, what was it?
It was something ENT something extrovert something.
Yep. And
so the question is, what type of person is best suited for Periscope, and how do you know if you're that kind of person or not?
Well, that's so funny because I'm an ENFP, so I'm definitely extroverted. I think that people who might be more introverted, they are a little bit more fearful of getting on and putting their face out there and, you know, engaging, or they feel like they don't have much to say because, you know, they're more introverted. An extrovert is crazy. You know, they're like, in your personal space, and they're on Periscope. I think that, like I've said, that there is room for everything. So if you're a more introverted person and you want to show the sunset, people are going to want to see that sunset. You know, there are people out there. You just have to keep it going. Consistency on Periscope is one of the things that I feel like has helped me the most. When I first jumped on Periscope, sometimes I had 0 in my room for 3 minutes, but I just kept talking and I kept showing what I was showing and showing. I remember one time I was just showing the leaves, you know, like a weirdo, but I just kept consistent and you get more followers and people start seeing that you're, they fall in love with you. And I am in love with a lot of introverts on Periscope who do just want to show their cat. I just think that there's room for everybody. Everybody's going to want to follow someone. I really do believe that. But yeah, I guess the extroverts do have a little bit of an upper hand because they are more willing to do lip sync scopes, and that's going to get them more attention. Or they're going to want to do crazy challenges on Periscope, and that's going to get them more followers. So I understand the why it's probably hard, but
I have I think I have a really good list of the Jables how to get followers. Let me know if this is right. So Shelton, this might be helpful. I took notes.
All right.
So tips for getting and retaining your followers would be consistency. The first thing you touched on was engagement, because that's why a lot of people are on these platforms. Engagement, consistency, be real, be yourself, because that's the easiest to be consistent with. And then what we started with was community. And I feel like, my experience on Periscope, I started watching it and I was doing private broadcasts, and I feel like I sought out, I used the Google and I found what people were doing on Periscope. And okay, I didn't realize I spend most of my time on Facebook groups. And so I didn't know that Twitter was as big of a thing as it is. But, okay, so another thing you talked on with followers would be your replays and how do you deal with not having content in a scope when nobody is live?
How do I do it? Okay, so you mean when nobody's in the room?
Mm-hmm. Like if you didn't have 1,000 followers and you went live with your leaves, but you really wanted somebody to come and watch your leaves, what do you do if nobody comes?
Honestly, I think you keep going. Actually, today, this guy, I'm not going to say his name just in case, but this guy was new to my scope this morning, and so I wanted to go see what he was about, and I saw he had a 1, so he had a recent broadcast, and I went in there, and I went to just see how many people watched his scope, and nobody watched his scope, and he kept on his scope. It made me so sad. He kept scoping for 5 to 6 minutes, and he did not stop, and I gave him so many hearts, and even if he had stopped, it was encouraging to me that he just waited, and I can't wait to encourage the stink out of him, saying that was awesome, and everyone go follow him. We're going to flood him with love and just bring him in. I just think you got to keep going. If I had stopped broadcasting when I was showing my leaves and no one would come in and I got discouraged, I did get discouraged. I wouldn't have what I have now. You just got to keep going. If you want it, just keep going for it. Keep being consistent, and you will get followers. You will get people in your scopes.
So you're saying that it's possible for someone like myself to get 1,000 followers, even though I'm not nearly as nice to look at as you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't agree with that, but absolutely.
Also, another question is, what do you think? And for those of you who do not know, there is a woman named Brie Olson who's a former porn star, who is very popular on Periscope, and she scopes. I've written before on my personal blog that either she's a marketing genius or completely bonkers, and she pretty much films Periscopes or scopes every portion of her life. Every single solitary thing she does, she scopes it ad nauseum. And I would be curious as to what do you think of that?
I've never watched Brie Olson, but we do have a Periscope parody of her if you guys are ever interested. A guy named Wick Fury on Periscope does a Brie Fury parody of her. So I've seen his parodies, and they're funny. But I don't necessarily want to make a comment about her because I've never watched her personally. But if you're someone who's periscoping your whole life and you have the time to do that and you have people engaging in that, go for it. If that's your thing and you're getting the attention that you're seeking, then more power to you. I don't really know what she's doing on there, so I don't really have much of an opinion on it.
Okay. So go ahead. Yes.
How would you feel, and I'm just going to throw this out there, of people interacting as they normally do, and then suddenly someone comes along and sings music from a musical, say Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm.
Would you encourage such a person to really express their inner artistic ability, or would you just shut them down? How do you feel about that?
Is this in a comment?
No, that's a question.
No, I mean when they're singing the musical on live themselves, or they're saying the musical words in my.
Either works.
Well, I will be super honest with you. If someone was singing Oklahoma, I would watch it, number one. Number two, if they said it in my scope, I would be all over that. As an example, yesterday on my scope, we started writing the musical of Jaws and what that would look like if Jaws turned into a musical. So I'm all for that stuff. And that stuff just happens organically. That's one of my favorite things about scoping is I get on and I just want to connect with people. I do something called Java and Jables where I have my coffee and I just want to connect with you. And the conversations go everywhere, like starting to talk about a musical about Jaws. I mean, come on. It's just fun. I go with the comments. I let them lead the scopes a lot of the times.
Cool.
So, go ahead.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. So, what's the largest number of people that you've had in a scope before?
Well, we have a show called As the Scopes Turn, which I was telling you guys was the first Periscope opera. It's an interactive show. The first time that I officially jumped on my channel to do that, the live viewer count was over 600 people. But at one time, though, there was probably 60 to 70 continual people talking. And I lost my voice during that scope. I went for an hour, and I totally lost my voice. It was the craziest thing, but it was so much fun. I loved it.
If you like, do you have any crazy stories from? I know you mentioned a few, but do you have any crazy stories of your time on Periscope? Any? I know that there was the 7 seconds guy, but any other crazy stories of people doing stuff or saying stuff that you look back and chuckle?
I'm trying to think about that, but I will tell you with the whole sex chat thing. The Periscope was flooded with a bunch of users with the name Sex Chat. Oh my gosh, Johnny Illuminati's in here. I have a little blab crush on Johnny Illuminati. Yeah, there was like this whole movement of users named Sex Chat and all this stuff that were just flooding people's followers list. And so I was blocking them. I was kept being told block them. So I blocked them. But one came in my scope and they actually talked to me. And it was really funny because I was reading so many comments and all I saw was, well, hey. And I was like, hey. And then I saw their name, Sex Chat, and I was like, oh no. And I blocked them so fast. It like happened so quickly. But they said, hey, I know, but I didn't want to talk to them. I just did.
So what do you think of the issue of the sex bots? Where are they coming from, and why are they here, and what's the purpose?
I have no idea. There are so many rumors. I don't know if you guys know who Billy Starr is, but there's a whole rumor that he created it all. It was just funny. I mean, like, I didn't really think that they were doing much damage to anybody. I haven't heard of anything like literally happening, except that they were just filling people's followers lists, and people didn't want them in their followers. But other than that, I just think it was kind of weird, and it kind of seemed to have stopped. But I don't know what it was about. I know that my boss, Jason, told me that he heard of someone having to block almost 100. And one of my girlfriends showed a screenshot of just like within an hour, she had so many of them follow her. I have no clue what it was. None. But it was weird.
So who is this fellow that you mentioned that may be the source of it? Maybe a source?
Oh, Billy Starr. He's totally not. He's one of those scopers who, if you go in his scope, like just be prepared for a lot of language and a lot of non-serious talk. So I think he wanted to take credit for it, which is weird, but no, it's not. He didn't do it.
So do you think it's part of a marketing ploy or campaign or something of some sort of weird sex organization?
Possibly.
Like,
I really don't know, because before they came in my scope and said hello to me, I just thought they were just, I didn't think that they were necessarily real people. I just thought it was like a flood of whatever. And but then they were talking to people now. So they are run by someone, I guess. So I don't know. I really have no idea what it was about, but it was weird.
I think that you said something earlier about how on Periscope you don't see the people behind the screen, and so it makes it a little bit more scary, and that it might be easier to mitigate risk when you are face-to-face. Do you think that was part of the hullabaloo about the sex chat bots?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think it's, you're right. Like you just said that, and I thought, that does make Blab even more safe, because other than the people who might just be watching and not engaging, I know that on Periscope there was a guy who had like 6 different accounts, and I was told to block 2 of them, and I didn't know they were the same guy. And it turned out, it all came out, it was the same one guy who was just, trolling. He was trolling. And, so it is very hard when you're on Periscope as opposed to Blab, where you can see faces and you can, interact face-to-face with the people that you're engaging with. So definitely makes Blab seem a little more safer to me now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty established that Blab is probably, in some ways, because Blab is so small and it's so supportive of people. I think relative to, and as I mentioned, I feel that Periscope is kind of a brutal media environment, because you've got like people, like if you want to be a success, you got a hard road to hoe, as they say, ahead of you, because you got to have whatever that magic stuff is to get people to continue to watch. Jables, how do you think we'll look back at this period of time in Periscope's history? Like someone asked someone recently, how do you make money off of YouTube? And they said, use YouTube in 2006. Do you think that is the same thing going to happen with Periscope? That people will look back now and say, well, it used to be open to anybody and you had a chance to be a star, and now it's not that case. Do you think that's what's going on or not?
I hope not, but I do think it's probably, but I still think people are finding their way on YouTube too. So I kind of think you're right. The people who have that it factor are going to be the ones who are chasing that stardom. Sometimes it might just happen for someone because they have great content, and it might just happen naturally that they're going to get advertisers or sponsorship. But I think in the grand scheme, it's the person who does have that quality about them that they want to be a star, and they're going to go after that stuff. But I think that that's available on YouTube now even. I don't think that that's gone, but I do think it's going to be like that. I just hope Periscope is always used for everybody, from people who are putting on channels, putting on shows, to the person who is showing their dog in the backyard. I really do hope it continues to stay that way, even when the companies start coming after scopers and want to be having their stuff advertised. I just hope it stays like that, because it's what makes it so real and raw. And I just love that I can go on to watch a mom homeschool their children, and I can go watch a game show done live. There's just so much going on. There's something for everybody. I love it.
Well, so you touched on that. What if you were trying to describe the appeal of Periscope to someone who is not using Periscope at all now? What's the pitch? What would you say as a Periscoper with 1,000 people? What's your pitch to them? I
would say that in the form of social media, it is the most real way you are going to connect with someone. On Facebook, on Instagram, even Twitter, all these things, we filter what we're saying. We filter our pictures. There's no filter on the camera, on your webcam yet. And, you're just talking. And so there's not that much time to sit there and think, what am I going to say? So I have found that I have made some real friendships of being on Periscope and watching other scopers, being on here on Blab even, and you get the real person. You don't get the filtered version. I've cried on Periscope. I have talked about my marriage failing in different areas on Periscope. I've really poured myself out there, And people do that. And that's not something you're necessarily going to see on social media like Facebook and stuff. They're not going to air their dirty laundry, per se.
I have one last question, and that is it possible to use Periscope too much?
Yes, I actually unfollowed someone because they were scoping so much. And but you know what? Again, my whole thing is I just want people to embrace their weird and embrace themselves. And if they are getting on because maybe they're lonely in their lives and this is where they find family, then more power to you. You get on your scopes. You know, like you don't know why people are using Periscope. I've heard so many stories about people who say that they've dealt with depression, and because of Scope, it helps them get out of bed in the morning because they know they're going to get dressed, they're going to get on their Scope, and there's going to be 5 to 10 people in there saying how much they love them, listening to them. It's just changing things. It's beautiful. I love it.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up now. I think we should all go around and tell our Periscope username ideas. Mine is I'm Shelton Bumgarner in Periscope, and mine is Migukin with a K, Migukin. And Gables, what's yours?
Mine is at Sparkle Branding, my same here as my username here.
Hannah.
I am at Dogtown Drive, also the same as my username here. And
I'm the only person that's like irregular. Okay, Sydney.
Say you could look at my Periscope at Sydney Shapiro, but honestly, you'll probably more likely find me on Shelton's.
We want you. That's where we go. I love it.
Exactly.
Okay. Jables, any closing words?
I would just tell everyone in here that if you haven't given Periscope a shot, just try it out or just watch some broadcasts on replays on catch.me. And I love you guys. I think you guys are super encouraging, and the Blab community is very welcoming to Periscopers and even people who don't necessarily understand Blab. So thank you for being awesome and so welcoming to people who are still trying to figure out this platform. It's very cool. So thank you.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Yes, Hannah, any closing statement?
That was fantastic. That's exactly why I use Periscope, is people like Jables, like I'm inspired and I broadcast myself, and now I just want to broadcast all the time, but not too much so you won't block me. So thank you. This was, I am relatively new to Periscope, and I have all these note cards full of notes that I took.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
I'll find you on the
Okay. Sydney, do you have any final closing remarks?
I do. Jables, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I've often wondered how we can make Shelton more popular on Periscope, and it turns out it's as simple as turning into a hot chick. So I appreciate that insight very much, and I will bring it up at a future Shelton meeting.
All right. My final remarks are thank you, everyone, for participating. I thought this was really interesting, and I think in the future, as I mentioned, instead of going to CNN, we will go to Periscope. And I also think that there will be Periscope stars that will go mainstream, and I think there will also be Blab stars that go mainstream.
For sure.
And I think it's just a matter of time before that happens. And now I will say goodbye. Thank you again, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
And that's it for today.
Thank you.